Hello and welcome to the Gamers for Peace Twitch channel. We are an initiative of Veterans for Peace. We are carrying on the legacy of veterans speaking openly to young people about their military service. We're bringing these stories to today's digital world through the combined efforts of anti-war veterans, allies, and gamers. This is RightSeatRide. On this show, we'll be exploring stories of resistance and sharing knowledge across generations of organizers. Some of you may have heard of the term right seat, left seat. This refers to when members of a new unit are coming into an area, they ride along with the unit they are relieving, sitting in the right seat to observe operations. After familiarization, the new unit gets the left seat and the relieving unit observes. And that's why we're here. This is our Right Seat Ride. My name is Jules Vaquera. I am a member coordinator on staff with Veterans for Peace. So if you haven't joined yet, I'm your girl. For learning how, hit me up. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force and the Iraq War. Not fucking proud of it. Very much regret it, but it is a part of my story. Today, in our right seat, we have Son of Damon. He's been rolling with Gamers for Peace for a while now, been playing games with us, sitting on panels, and we're glad to have him here with us. He was an intel analyst for a little over 5 years. He deployed to Afghanistan and is currently studying international affairs at CU and primarily focused on revolutions and political violence. In our right seat today, we have Keith Mather. He is a member of Veterans for Peace, and he's been resisting war for a very long time, and we're very honored to have him with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith. So before we get to the actual Presidio stockade, you were drafted in '67. Is that right, Keith?
Yeah, drafted in the Army. Didn't care for it. I mean, I kind of got off on the physical demands and so forth because I was an athlete, and so I could get along with that stuff. But everything else was just like more than I wanted to hear, more than I wanted to see. No relief at all. So I went through basic and AIT there at Fort Lewis, and in AIT right around the holidays, they gave us 2 weeks, and I couldn't believe it. I get out of here. And so went home, connected with one of my friends, and had a epiphany, you might say, sitting in a room after all my friends were gone, and the quintessential Persian rug on the floor and candlelight. And I just said, hey, I'm not going, and no matter what. And so all the burden I was feeling all these times in AWOLs and so forth, it was lifted. I no longer felt, because I made an internal decision that I wasn't going. And so I'm done making decisions. That's it. That's it. So I got involved on a longer AWOL with the War Resisters League in San Francisco. And they were, communicating with a lot of guys that were AWOL. Believe me, there was a lot of us, a whole bunch. And so we gathered together 5 Army guys, 2 Navy, a Marine, and an Air Force sergeant. And we formed what we were called the 9 for Peace. And we represented all 4 branches. And it was kind of new, kind of different. Got a lot of attention. We had a press conference, and then it took them 3 days to come and find us at a church in Marin County. We told them we were quitting. We were resigning from the military. We weren't going to Vietnam, and we were encouraging other people to do the same thing. And it took them 3 days to figure out how to go and get us with all the sheriffs, all the branches. And then they took us away they arrested us in Marin City at the communion table while we were taking communion and on camera, and pulled us away from our supporters, and then I went to Stockade and the Presidio along with my 4 Army friends. And I spent 5 months there. And during that period of time, there was a young prisoner.
Okay, so hold on. Let's
go back.
Let's go back. So you were placed. It started with you being placed on a work detail. Am I right? They tried to place you on a work detail, and you were not having that.
Well, I kind of figured, you're right. I kind of figured that, why do I want to work for these people? Why do I want to do anything for them? Anything I do, even though it's in a jail, is going to take another person off of that duty and, lighten the load of the military as far as I was concerned. And I wasn't about to do that. So,
Yeah.
So I took my uniform off
Uh-huh.
and dropped it to the ground in front of an E6, and he gave me a lawful order to put it back on, and I said no. And
Lawful order.
yeah, sergeant, no sergeant. And so he got an officer to give me a direct order, and I said no, sir. And they said okay, solitary confinement. Okay, downstairs to the box, and it was in and out of there. They release you for a period of time and put you back in for something else. So, it was like that. It was, harassment, too many people in the prison. There was double what there should have been. Harassments were short. I remember one guard being absolutely wonderful, and I'm still a friend to this day. And other guards that were just, kind of shits, really didn't have any connection at all. So, that has to be said. And also, there was a long period of time where people were going out on work details.
Mm-hmm. And this is where Richard Bunch comes in, correct?
Yeah, Richard was out. Richard was a kind of I think he was from Tennessee, and he had, I think, been taking acid and doing what everybody else was doing, but I think he got a little fried.
My kind of guy.
You popped in. Yes. So Richard was talking to himself, and kind of mumbling in the corner a lot at his bunk. And we knew he wasn't right, and we knew he had medication that they weren't giving him, and they were, so we tried to do what we could do, just to take it, give him a little buffer if we could, but not much we could do. So they put him out on a work detail, and lo and behold, he's got a shotgun guard, he's down by the hospital, and he starts to walk and says, hey, you're going to shoot me if I run. And he said, you'll have to run and see. And he just started walking, skipping, just playfully doing this. And the guard shot him, in the back of the head. And so kind of that was the end of that. And my three friends that were along with that work detail were on the ground and, petrified and traumatized and shot by one of our own guys in the same uniform we had. And then they brought that news back to the stockade, mm-hmm. which started a small riot where we broke windows and did some damage in the intercom system, and just steel and concrete. So we couldn't do a lot, but from that came a minister that came up and said, hey, we're going to have a memorial. So we went over for the memorial, and the sky pilot decided to say, well, it was justifiable homicide or something. And we lost our shit, again, and started, we threw folding chairs out the windows. And we all walked out. And, we knew where we stood. And so we decided we were going to have to do something. And that's when Randy Rowland showed up. He showed up in jail. He had turned himself in at the gates, and
he came after Richard had passed away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he came in the next day, the 12th, mm-hmm. I think, and that's when the demonstration was at the gates, and that's where certain people turned themselves in at that point. And GI organization that formed that demonstration, one of the earliest ones, I think.
So and they did a demonstration outside the gates of the stockade, and some people turned themselves in at that time, is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Nine for Peace was in jail, so they were coming to the jail for Nine for Peace and also trying to figure out what happened to Richard. Yeah. And Randy was kind of given the job to come in, because he was turning himself in anyway, and find out what happened, and then try to communicate that. And so we we ended up deciding that we were going to have to do something, a demonstration of some kind. We couldn't just let this slide. All of us were really bothered and worried. Because we were being asked to go out on work details.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So you guys organized together inside the prison to decide to have a demonstration?
Yeah, between the 11th and the 14th, we had decided we were going to go out, and we did on the 14th. Go to formation, first formation, fall back into chow, come back out after using the restroom, whatever, and then the work details would begin. As soon as they called the first name, that was our signal to break ranks, go over and sit down, and we had a list of grievances, and my good friend Walter Pawlowski volunteered to read the demands.
Oh, that's so brave.
And so anyway, we broke ranks. The book says that I was the first one to break ranks, only because the people who said they were gonna didn't, and so I stepped in. And sooner or later there was a large group of 27, I think 28 guys. Actually, one guy ran back in, but nevertheless, 27 of us broke ranks. That was a third or more of the formation, so it was significant. And so they read the Mutiny Act to us, where we're sitting on the lawn singing "We Shall Overcome," and I think we tried to sing "America the Beautiful." It didn't really come out good, and so we were just trying to sing loud so we couldn't hear the guy read us the orders, read us the Mutiny Act, and it didn't work, but that's what we did. And they took us inside and strip searched us. And I went to solitary right away, and Walter went to solitary right away, and they held us there for a period of time. And then, slowly let us out, because we had Article 32 boards, and our trials, were coming up. And then in November, I went to trial for refusing a direct order and desertion. Mm-hmm. And I was convicted on both charges, sentenced to 4 years and a DD, and yet had a court-martial pending for mutiny.
Wow.
So I made the decision that if I could take any steam out of the military, I should. And we all decided to. Anybody who can escape should. That was what we just said to everybody. If you can get out, go. Rather than, all of us marching into jail together, Walter had already been to Canada and was a landed immigrant. And I had connections deep within the resistance in the city. And so we decided to bail, to get out. And I'll just tell you the short story. Okay. On Christmas Eve, 1968, we petitioned this guard to let us out of the main fence into a shed where we would put our tools, because we were both carpenters. I mean, I had a hacksaw, wire cutters, a handsaw, hammer, all these things they let us walk around with. And then we ended up, making little pockets where you could hide things with the tools and so forth. So, but at any rate, we got out and told them we were going to make a little shelf to keep the toolbox up out of the water, the wet, because it was foggy and rainy. And we went out a window, and it was not barred, and slowly jogged side by side in the mist and rain. It was a real good reason to jog to the golf course, where we knew there would probably not be anybody because it was raining. And we walked across the golf course and then climbed the proverbial 13-foot wall. And we're in San Francisco, and we caught a cab. I had $20 in the heel of my boot.
Oh my gosh.
We got a cab given to me by a Franciscan priest.
Aww.
Has to be said. And we got out, and kind of a really nervous, heady deal. And we were taken to a safe house in San Carlos. And then within, I think 2 days later, we were in a Rambler station wagon, a red Rambler station wagon, driven by a Franciscan priest headed to Priest River, Idaho, to pick up a member of his family, his sister, and then and go on up to Grand Forks, BC. We ended up getting to Grand Forks, BC, New Year's Eve, and Walter and I rode a bus to Vancouver and celebrated on the way with nothing. But we were free, and we got to Vancouver. There was 6 inches of snow. So,
wow. So how long were you in exile?
12 years, pardon me. 12 years, give or take. From 1968, the end of the year, to May. It was actually, I think, December of 74, I was rearrested in California. So until then.
Wow. What happened when you got rearrested? Like, were they expecting you to still serve that term?
Yeah, they were. That's right. Exactly. But the trials for mutiny, I was never tried. I didn't stick around for the trial.
Okay.
I didn't figure there was any point in sticking around for that if I were. So because I knew what the outcome would be, and I was correct. Yeah. Everybody was guilty, and everybody got 14, 15, 16 years, wow. And that was heavy duty, and I felt really like crap when I heard they got such heavy sentences, because I had left, and I felt that a lot, and I'm sure they did too, in the opposite direction, but by not being there, I did take away something, and so did Walter. Yeah. And so when the charges were overturned and they were released after like under 2 years, I think.
Oh wow!
I sat in Canada till 1980. Mm-hmm. So I worked, but I mean, but the exile in Canada was certainly difficult because I couldn't see my family and friends and things like that. However, it was illuminating, and living in another country, and it was best thing I could have done, as far as I'm concerned, just to preserve my soul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And prison or combat, I mean, that was kind of the two choices I thought I had, and I chose neither. So
I'm so glad that you made that choice, because I did not, and I definitely lost my fucking soul in the fucking process. So I wish I had that kind of strength, and I'm fucking like proud of you, and like so glad that you made that decision. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I have no other words than just admiration, really. I think it's such a act of strength to be able to make a decision like that and face those consequences. And a theme of mine over the last year, as I've gotten more and more involved with this organization, has been, if I could go back in time and shake my 19-year-old self like I was a little baby, like a misbehaving, and just say, no, you don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I do counter recruitment, to keep other people from falling into the things that we did.
Yeah. I spoke in high schools a fair amount after I got out of the military. I got my discharge, and I spoke one time with Charlie Litkey and Jimmy Janko at a school in San Francisco, a private school, but they probably wouldn't go into the military, but nevertheless they needed to hear it. And the thread that kind of went through all of us was how well we are doing and how well we slept at night. And Charlie has had problems during his life sleeping. He did, and so did Jimmy. Jimmy had a hard time gaining any weight after Vietnam, things like that. And they complained about sleep disorders and just things that bothered him. And the one thing I said that day was that I sleep good every night. And, I don't think anybody could dispute that that's a very important thing. And that we all got to, understand that we are affected by everything that goes on all around us, even if we don't feel it today. So, we're affected, and I think I did my therapeutic best subsequently by years of therapy, group therapy, traveling around trying to understand what was going on, going to those conventions. And then I went to Vietnam in 2018.
Oh, really? What was that like?
What was the 50th anniversary of My Lai? And we went to My Lai on the 16th, on the 50th anniversary, and hung out with lots and lots of Vietnamese officers, dignitaries, so forth and so on. And I was humbled to be there. It was kind of a grim day, but yet good in many ways, hopefully healing. And that trip and just seeing Vietnam, and I've never been there. I jokingly said, "Hey, I'll tell you all about my tour of Vietnam." But it's like there's no way I can express, the feelings I had when I was shaking hands with Vietnamese officers, soldiers. Yeah, I mean, going to cemeteries over there and seeing guys that were my age, and there's their headstone, and putting incense in the vase, and and ringing the gong, and just really trying to feel what's going on, as much as I could. Maybe my one shot to go there and to see it, to be with the people, to go into huts, people's homes where they have a child that's a victim of Agent Orange and is bedridden and has been probably throughout its life, and it's 30 years old.
Yeah, and you get to know that you did not help do that. You get to know that you made the decision not to do that. I think that's amazing.
Well, for me, it's like I just really quickly say, I was raised in Baptist church. I was my mother was the daughter of a Baptist preacher. My dad was a hardworking tradesman. So I kind of got brought up in a lot of different ways. And I was a street fighter in high school. I was, just doing the same stuff everybody else was doing, getting in trouble, being a little rebellious. And, my father and me didn't get along great. So my rebelliousness, or whatever it is that helped me resist the military and the school, the police, whatever, all originated right there at home. Because I had to find the tools to make it through home and then school. And then by the time I got to the military, after hanging out in Haight-Ashbury for a couple of years, I just, called bullshit and walked the other way. That's all I could do.
That's amazing.
I didn't have a choice. There was no choice. There were no other choices. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely had a choice and I made the wrong fucking one. So I'm glad you made the choice you made.
Nobody's perfect, and believe me, I made a choice, sure, and it cost me.
Yeah.
It cost me. Yeah. I had my children visited me in prison. Okay. So it's like, even though I didn't go into combat, even, I spent a little time, maybe a total of a year behind bars, behind all this, the effects of this and the effects of everything you all have been through, are still there for you to deal with, and my hope is that, that in dealing with it, you will heal. Everybody will heal somehow. Yeah. And, make it not as real as it once was. Put it in the past where it belongs, but yet do the work around healing yourself. That's all I can say.
I think the moral of the story is military service puts us in situations that makes us make fucked up choices, regardless of what you choose. Regardless of what you choose when you're in the military, it's just, there are going to be consequences no matter what. And so if you can avoid military service, fucking do it.
Yeah. Go the other way.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what's there for you really? I don't understand on some level. I understand the economic draft. I understand why people are maybe going, and I got relatives that are career. Okay. So what can I do? And they got kids. And so that's the deal. I just, I see the awareness that's going on today. But one thing I want to talk about is when I was doing what I was doing, there was a thing called the movement. There were thousands and thousands of people that were part of the movement all over the country. And encouraged by Bob Dylan and Joan Baez and, all the rock and roll in the world, basically. And so I feel we were fortunate. We were lucky that I was lucky that I was in that period, that moment, as a reference. And I don't know what's going on now out in the world as far as vets go, and as far as people. I know there's counselors. I know that there's all kinds of help maybe, but I don't really know and understand exactly what support systems are really present for people.
It's definitely something that's a difficult decision for a lot of people, especially as Plantifa brings up in the chat that a lot of people stay in so that they can get health care. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, one of the bigger issues that I've noticed within the active duty veteran community, and I think a lot of us have, is that lack of healing. Keith was saying that it's so important to do that act of self-healing. If you have been to, even if you haven't been to war, therapy is really important. Go to therapy. But you could call it toxic masculinity, you could call it machismo, whatever you want to call it. The military still suffers from this idea that it is weakness to seek help. And even though you're a member of a formation, you're like the weak link of the chain, and nobody wants to be that weak link, and nobody wants to be seen as that weak link. And I think, on a personal level, one of the most life-saving actions I've ever done was consistently going to therapy, and doing that work of self-healing, and recognizing, like what Keith said, where, there wasn't a choice for him. And I, looking back, kind of was in a similar boat. I didn't really, I didn't do well in high school. So my college prospects weren't very good. I was a rebellious teenager, so I wasn't really cut out for office work or any of those things. So, I had resolved to join the military when I was a little kid. And once you've got that worm in your head, it's really hard to, wiggle it back out.
Yeah. Yeah. Plantifa is bringing up in chat that getting mental health care is also actively discouraged, that they have a friend who got a briefing after a suicide that they said, "That's weak. This is a joke. Toughen up."
Yeah.
Sounds about right. I got extra duty once for missing a therapy appointment because I was working. I was working in intelligence. So I was in this building called a SCIF. It's a secured classified information facility or something like that. No phones.
Compartmented information facility.
Yeah. Who actually cares?
Yeah,
Jules.
Exactly.
But I was in the SCIF. We were doing training. I was a sergeant at the time. I had been back from Afghanistan at that point, I think a year and a half. And, I had just completely forgotten that I had this appointment, and I normally would have been reminded if I had my phone with me. And they gave me a week of extra duty for missing a mental health appointment. And, they knew I was on antidepressants. My command team, that is, they knew I was on antidepressants. They knew I was going to therapy for all of these issues. And they were like, what you need is to stay for 3 or 4 hours after work every day as punishment for missing an hour of therapy. It's the military is not friendly to anything that doesn't place the mission first, right? And I don't know if the Soldier's Creed was a thing back when you were in the Army, Keith, but, it was one of those things that we had to recite every morning. And that's a part of our, in the Army, the warrior ethos is I will always place the mission first. It's the first part of that, what makes, in the Army's view, a good warrior is placing the mission first, not your family, your comrades, your mental health.
Definitely not.
None of that. No, absolutely not.
No, you have to be selfless. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just really quick little, anecdotes to show you the difference in comparison between these two, points 50 years apart or whatever. I remember a guy, Joe Cicluna, that was, he was obviously trying to get out. It was very clear. We were all were. So, but he had all of his medications, 30 or 40 bottles of medications, all very neatly lined up in his footlocker, right? So when the inspection came, the guy lost his mind looking at the guy's footlocker. The next day, a package arrived for Joe. It was pink cotton blankets with pink satin edging. He was allergic to wool and got a medical profile to stockade his bunk with pink blankets. So, I mean, yeah, I know, but I mean, it means nothing, but he got out. I mean, that means something. So yeah, his efforts weren't in vain, put it that way.
That's amazing. Do you have any final questions, Son of Damon?
I guess my biggest, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, but my biggest question is, would you, I'm assuming you would say it was worth it to do what you did. But I guess I just want to know if you could do any of that, differently. Is there anything you would do differently, or do you carry, I guess, is there anything that you haven't said is my question that you've been wanting to say for the last 50 years?
Well, one of the things I say, is that, if there's anything else maybe that I could have done instead of doing what I did, would be not take the oath and refuse induction.
Yeah.
That would have been made my life a lot different, however, it seems that I made the choice. I've gone through it. And in retrospect, I don't think I would change very much, just because the people I've met from all over the world, that, do what you did. You say, hey, Keith, I think you did right thing, or something, that helps. It helps, I mean, it really does. I mean, I got lots of buddies, lots of guys that were in Vietnam, and we agree, not serving during that period of time was the best thing you could do.
Yeah.
So, and I have a feeling the same is true now. It's just a matter of how do you wiggle it? How do you work it so that you can still get out and make a living? There's maybe, even though there's no draft, there's all this other stuff going on. And, I don't know. I'm really glad I had the time I had, okay, as opposed to now. Even though in the 80s, when I came back, it was an easier time for me to get out. Mm-hmm. So things have shifted around, and I'm not really, I'm 75 years old. So for, over 50 years of my life, this has been a story I knew. Okay. So to me, it's really personal. It really matters. I love telling the story. I especially when people listen, and And I like to support other people who are, in similar situations if I can, somehow.
Thank you, Keith. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for sharing with us a story that was so personal. Thank you for doing that emotional work to share it with us. And thank you for fucking doing what you did, because I hope that, and I hope, by the way, to our viewers, that hearing this story gives you the courage to resist, and lets you know that you don't have to do this shit. Me and Zach are here to tell you, Keith made the better fucking choice.
Yes, 10,000%.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit real quick just about our programming later this week and next week. Tomorrow we have community game night. You should come play some Jackbox games with us. It's going to be super fun. Friday we have Plantifa, who is hosting our military ad slam. We're going to clown on some depictions of military in media. And Monday we have Mentorship Monday with Highly Sensitive Unicorn, and Unicorn is going to have a guest and talk about options that you have outside of the military so that you don't have to join, so that you are not a victim of the economic draft. So you should definitely join us for all of those programs. And we will be back here with Right Seat Ride in 2 weeks. I do not yet know who our guest will be, but it will be on January 26th. Same peace time, same peace channel, right here on the Gamers for Peace Twitch. So once again, thank you both for joining us. Any final words?
Fuck war.
Oh, go ahead.
Anything I can do for you or VFP, I'm happy to do.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, y'all. Peace is possible. Fuck war.